Hello and welcome to the Portrait Podcast. At a convening on October 25th and 26th, 2022, the Nevada Department of Education teamed with ed.Xtraordinary to launch the Portrait of a Nevada Learner. While community members from across the state attended presentations and workshops, they were also invited to sit down and be interviewed by young people from the community to share their perspective. Each week, we will drop one of these short conversations to inspire your thinking as we build a community-wide vision for who we want our young people to be. Enjoy.
How are you guys doing? We are getting through the interviews today. It is still beautiful outside. Back again with your host, Mr. Etheridge. I'm here with my co-host.
My name is Adamari Navarez. Nice to meet you guys. Nice to talk to you guys. And we also have a guest speaker,
Pam Moran, and it is fabulous to be with you here today.
Thank you so much for coming on our podcast. Let them know what you do, how's your day going, things like that.
This is a wonderful day because anytime that I can be in the room with people who are enthusiastic and excited about young people and really going after trying to make our schools something that our young people can get excited about and find to be energizing in their lives, you gotta love that passion that's in
always. And one thing that I like about this event is that there are so many people who care about the educational system. You know, it feels like there's been a disconnect recently, but coming here today and then also we'll be back here tomorrow, it's just like the way the community comes together for the youth. And just education in general is just, you know, it's so different, and we need a lot more of it across the world. So our first question for you, what are some durable skills you have had to develop in order to succeed in learning, but not only learning in life? And also, how did you develop those?
Okay. Wow. First of all, my last job in public education was as a superintendent for 13 years.
Okay.
And you better have some durable skills if you're going to be a superintendent, particularly in this day and age. But I would say that first and foremost that I think that some of the really critical kinds of skill sets that I had to have as a superintendent were being able to problem solve.
Okay.
Right.
And not just problem solve myself, but to be able to bring people together around a challenge and get people together and invested in how do we as a team come up with the best solution possible, not just a solution.
Exactly.
That's one. Another is resilience and being able to really have sort of a stick-to-itiveness so that when you're working on something that you stay with it until the job gets done.
Discipline, real discipline.
Yeah, that one. And then probably the third thing I would say is self-determination.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Self-determination.
That's a big
So
one for
those are
sure.
three. There are lots of them on the list, obviously. And those have been, I think, really skill sets that are really lifespan skills, not just in the moment skills.
Exactly.
So that. And then I would say that how I learned those, probably in a lot of different ways. I learned them from being a mother.
Okay.
And figuring out
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
how do you raise a child and make sure your child is growing up resilient as a problem solver.
Something you don't really get taught. It's more of adapting, you know?
That's absolutely right. As a teacher, and I think probably from my grandfather who was a farmer.
That's awesome.
Okay.
Because when you're a farmer, you better have some resilience.
Yeah.
See, I had grandparents that had a farm too, and it's like I'm a girl dad, so I feel like resilience has to be the top of my vocab. All right, I just for right now and in the future, I don't know. It just puts stress on my heart just thinking about the coming years.
Yeah.
But those were great answers. I really feel the resilience is really key because locking in and just disciplining yourself. Like, I know I have to get this done.
Right.
It's easy to get discouraged and it's easy to fall off the path. It's just
Really?
a lot of the times people make excuses, but us, as a community, when I say community, holding each other accountable, when you build those relationships, you have people around you that actually want to see you succeed.
Definitely.
That brings so much more force to what you're doing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We also have another question.
Okay.
So, what are some critical mindset and skills that you believe young people need to have to succeed in life?
Well, I would say that from a mindset perspective, that being someone who's willing to grow and keep learning.
Yeah, definitely that one.
That is absolutely critical, not just for our kids, but for us as adults.
Yeah.
I like to think on the last day of my life,
Right.
I will be a learner.
Yeah.
Right.
Just as I think I was from the very first time that I first started learning. And I think that that's one that's really critical because when you close down and you develop a fixed mindset,
Okay.
then you close yourself off from learning things that are new and thinking about things differently.
Yeah.
And boy, have I had to, across my lifetime, change some of the ways that I think about things.
Yeah, it's
Right.
like saying I can't and I am willing to,
Absolutely.
taking that a little bit further than what it actually
Absolutely.
is going to be,
Yeah, so that's one. I think another is having a mindset of flexibility
Okay.
and realizing that there is no one right way to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And that when you are confronted with challenges, that you really need to take the time to think about what are some different ways this could get solved? Who else might help me to think with this? Having a coach, a mentor.
Okay, yes,
and-
exactly.
And I will tell you that one of the most important things I learned as a superintendent is to be in a relationship with younger generation people who could be a reverse mentor for me.
Right.
So it wasn't just about what I had to offer to them, but I could take a problem to a 30-year-old or even a 10-year-old and say, so what would you do? And sometimes they would come up with solutions that were really far better than anything I could think of.
Exactly, that we haven't even been thought of, and it's
That's
like
right.
seeing the youth evolve in
Yeah,
such a manner like
different
that.
generations
Exactly,
throughout
you've
the
seen
school years.
you've seen so many just art, whether it's on YouTube or just a social media videos of kids just being so smart nowadays,
right.
and it's it's programs. That take the time, get the one-on-ones with them,
Yeah,
actually,
definitely.
getting that deeper connection. And, I think that's what really drives the education system a little bit more, that personal connection to a sense where you feel, okay, I can trust this person,
Right.
and I feel like
Absolutely.
a lot of relationships are built on trust. And when I say relationships, friendships, mentorships, things of that nature, because a lot of times we wouldn't even be to certain places unless we had those type of things, in our life.
Yeah, I like to think about that in our lives that we are all teachers and we're all learners.
Right.
And I will never forget walking into, we had a space in one of our high schools where kids could come in and they could work on entrepreneurship or make things,
awesome.
whatever. And I walked in one day and the teacher said, hey, I want you to meet this kid. And I said, okay. So I went over. I said, so what's the story? He said, well, I'm really in here and I'm figuring out how I'm developing out becoming a barber. And he starts telling me this story about how he found this barbering kit in his dad's closet. He started cutting hair on the porch in the apartment space where he lived. All of a sudden, this kid is on, at that time, Instagram.
Okay.
And he's putting up pictures of hair that he's cut, like shaping, this.
Right,
You guys
right.
have all these names for that. And he's making all this money. He said, I can pay for I can take my mother out to eat once a month, and she works like 2 jobs. He said,
That's amazing.
I can pay for all the family's cell phones.
That's
And
awesome.
he said, so I'm making all this money. And I said, so what do you want to do next? And he said, well, I want to go to New York and maybe study with a top-notch barber and really open up my own place,
Yep.
And I said, well, that's pretty cool. I said, how old are you? He said, 14,
Oh my gosh, that is amazing.
Think about it.
Awesome.
We
That is
got these
amazing.
kids out in every school in the United States of America, in the tiniest and the biggest school districts and schools
Yeah.
in the country, and we are losing out on knowing who these kids are and what they can do.
Thank you so much. Is there anything you got to say to the peers? Any advice you want to give before we sign out?
I would say that for every one of the young people and the people in this room, that one of the things we have to do is trust in our young people.
Definitely.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Thank you so much for being on our podcast. Guys, always remember, it starts here. We're signing out.
The Portrait Podcast was recorded and created by the young people from Choice Business Group. If you would like to join the conversation, please visit portrait.nvfutureoflearning.org. Again, that's portrait.nvfutureoflearning.org.